what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoy it.
Maybe talk about the plan for LSU now at defensive tackle.
Yeah, I thought I could come in here and sneak away with just giving away Chicago tips. I went up there last week, but no, he's not. He's just listening, so I'll text him later. So I'm stuck talking D tackle. I don't get to talk Chicago.
Well, I mean, you could look. We can do whatever we want here. I mean, it's our show.
Is T-Bob searching for D tackles up there?
He might. You know what? Does Northwestern have one? Maybe in Chicago, in the area, or maybe even Illinois. He can get on a quick little trip and maybe go to Champaign. I don't know.
Let's bounce back. All right. Well, yeah, the story was, Jake, that, I think it was rather public. People knew that LSU was going after the two highest ranked uncommitted defensive tackles out there, and Dominic Williams out of TCU and Simeon Barrow out of out of Michigan, who's now gone to Miami. And obviously Dominic Williams lands at Oklahoma. Both those guys made campus visits. Everything, I think, looked good. In terms of pitch and playing time, the fit, NIL opportunities, all that. And then they continue to make visits. And I think what we've learned from the spring portal window, one, it was not as hectic and crazy as everybody or a lot of people thought it would be. I think that speaks to a lot of teams being able to retain players and not have them hit the portal. LSU is one of them. Look, you could have had, I can speculate on names, but look at Shelton Sampson, Toviano. There's a lot of young guys that they wanted to keep around that certainly could have hit the portal and found maybe quicker path to the field or whatever it might be a fit somewhere else, and they don't. So that was a good thing. Now, when you turn around and start looking for people, I think the premium guys like these two tackles were able to really say, NIL-wise, I'm going to kind of approach this with an attitude of I'm going to, whoever is coming after me the hardest, who's presenting me the best NIL package. And I think that when I'm looking at who's done well in the spring portal and gotten the really big names, yes, Oklahoma landed Dominic Williams, but it's been Oregon, it's been Miami, SMU scooped up some guys, Ole Miss. These are teams with very well-established collectives. They've got money, though nobody is kind of denying that. And I think when we look back on it, and like I said, the dust is settling now, beyond defensive tackle even, those schools, the ones with well-established collectives, were the ones that came away kind of the big winners of the second portal period when not many guys went in. And I think that what you deem their value to be, I think from a collective view or an NIL view is, Jacob, I'm not joking here, I'd say triple what it was in the first window. So the lesson here, if you're doing portal shopping, which Brian Kelly doesn't want to do a ton of, he said, I'd like to be around 25 to 30 high school signees and then sign 5 and maybe up to 10 transfers, depending on what you need. And that's kind of the numbers they're at, but it's got to be done. That's 5 to 10 of portal guys. It needs to be done in that first window when there's so many guys in there and you can kind of put together a class without, for lack of a better term, breaking the bank.
So, Shea, where does LSU go now? Are they going to continue to try to just get some bodies because they need some depth here on this defensive front at the defensive tackle position? Now, you've got some really highly rated freshmen coming in, but as we all know, you don't really know how much you can count on a true freshman to come in and help you and be an impact from day one. So, what is the plan? Do you think they'll still add multiple guys at that position, even though it's not the top guys?
I think that they will certainly continue and are. I have spent the whole weekend kind of watching everybody that's out there and saying, okay, what do we see that could be a fit here? But I think we have to put our kind of go into the mind of Bo Davis or, Blake Baker, the coaching staff here. And you play ball, you watch this team, you kind of break down the film every weekend. I'll ask you this. What is your expectation for how many DTs they play? Is it a 4 to 5 man rotation? Because last year, what was last year? They leaned on 4 guys: Jefferson, the starters, and then Guillory.
Yep.
Okay, so 4 would be Guillory's back. He's a starter. Fortunately, they landed Wisconsin's Gio Paez as a grad student. grad transfer before the portal even opened. So there's two right there. You mentioned Don McKinley, obviously coming in as a true freshman. You don't want to have to put too much on him, but if he can be part of that rotation, that would be huge. And then you've got this big group of guys that's Jalen Lee, who we didn't see a ton of, but it's the only other returner. Sean Washington out of JUCO. Preston Hickey was getting second-team reps as a guy who came back as a PWO from Oklahoma State. And then you can kind of move down the list. Kimo McAnioli was getting first-team reps as a converted O-lineman. Can you find one guy out of that group? And, yes, I do think that Jacob will continue to feel out who's out there. And maybe you find someone that you say, okay, this is a rotational guy for us. I'm not sure if you find a straight-up starter. That'd be huge if you still could. But if you're feeling like, hey, we can find someone out there that can benefit us, I have heard, though, that if they were in different looks with Blake Baker to be kicking guys inside, that Savion Jones would be one. And we knew that Jones had put on weight already to hold up against the run at DN, so that wouldn't be surprising if he kicks inside and brings a little bit of athleticism, right, to that position compared to some others. But at the same time, when you're going down the stretch here, Jacob, and yes, they have scholarships to give, I think it's that balance of it. Do you need bodies in the sense of, are these guys, or whomever you bring in, are they better than Jalen Lee, than, Kimo McAnioli, than these other guys who you have? Because you don't want to just keep adding guys that you're not sure would be in a rotation. I think at this point, they're not making a move on anyone that they don't expect to play this season.
What about any other positions, Shea? We've talked maybe some corners in the past. If you could get a veteran player, someone that could be a veteran presence maybe in that room, and maybe a rotational piece. Maybe you're not getting a true first-team corner because you've got some guys that have earned the right to get that first opportunity added. Like, could they add a veteran player maybe in that room just because you're so young?
Yeah, I think that was one that we were keeping an eye on because Corey Raymond had not moved on anyone at the cornerback position. And then this past week, for the first time, he went and checked out Wake Forest Deshaun Jones, who entered last week. Within 24 hours, Deshaun had told us that Corey had reached out to him. He went and checked him out in person, and then was setting up a visit for this week. But Deshaun's first visit was Alabama, and they are in desperate need of corners, more so than LSU at this point, I would say. And they've missed on a couple of guys. So Deshaun Jones visited Bama over the weekend, and I think he got there Saturday. By Sunday, On3's Steve Wiltfong, Pete Nakos, they had all put in On3 RPM picks for Bama to not miss on this one and to come away with Deshaun Jones. So if that goes down, I would guess he doesn't visit LSU. We'll see how that plays out. If he does end up visiting LSU, obviously that's not ideal for Bama. But with those picks going in, I would assume that their staff has some real confidence. And I think this one is, for me, I think everyone is so focused on DT. I still think DB is this was a multi-year rebuild that, as we know, they struggled a year ago mightily, but this year, can they be better? And that's, look, Brian Kelly fires the defensive staff. He brings in new coaches. We know what Corey Raymond can do, both recruiting and development-wise. And Jake Olson at safety, I don't have the biggest worry at safety. I like the move of Major Burdens down to that star position. We'll see how Sage plays this year. I do like Gilbert. And they've got some young guys there. Kylan Jackson's a really good young player. But the corner room, I'm with you, is one where it's, okay, a Deshaun Jones at Wake, you go after him because he's got size, he's got some starts, and he's a willing tackler. Had some pegs, pass breakups. So production's there. Will they end up getting him? Now, maybe not. But Corey hasn't just been tossing out offers to everyone, which tells me that, hey, look, he's going to at least work with what they've got there. And that's what we've seen from guys like Ashton Stamps. We know Toviano played some corner. They've moved Sage Ryan, away from the corner spot. So who else do you slide in there? I think there's a number of guys that P.J. Woodland, we saw as a true freshman. I'd keep an eye on Michael Turner, who's coming in as one of the faster guys in this class. And long, tall, one of those guys that Corey typically goes for. And he's coming from Curtis where, look, yeah, I know he signed as a receiver, but if there was any high school to tell a kid, hey, you're moving from receiver to DB, it's Curtis. It's not like he's been putting up 1,200 yards and 55 catches a year for 4 straight years running that veer. So I think he's a guy who could fit in. So I don't know. I think that's one that they may just stay put at. But DT certainly, they are kind of aggressively still looking and mining through the portal and feeling out, hey, are there guys out there that's better than just adding a body?
What about a guy like Gabe Relaford coming in? He is an early enrollee. Now, I know his size. He's, 6'2", 250 pounds. I don't know that he can certainly kick down and be able to hold up. But, what would the plan be for a guy like that, knowing that you just need to have some depth pieces in case that front line, and also it's a position that rotates so much, isn't ready to go? I mean, is Don McKinley really the only guy that you can see playing as a true freshman?
Yeah, and they signed a few others. I think he's certainly going to be the most ready as a true freshman. But look, Relaford looked good in the spring. I think the goal for Relaford, especially if you're in a situation where, let's say, a Savion Jones at times slides inside, well, then you've got Parrish Shand at the end, and the next guy's up is Relaford. So maybe he can get some early looks that are, pass rush or situational pass rush kind of looks that 3-4 times a game he gets in. And we saw some of that with Deshaun Womack as a true freshman. But look, I'm fine with the jack position where you've got a guy like Swinson back, and then you've got Deshaun Womack, and they've got some depth there. And then you look at the end and Savion Jones and obviously Parrish Shand, and then Relaford behind him. You're good there. For me, it really is just coming down to this interior spot where, let's be real, a year ago, Mekhi Wingo and Jordan Jefferson and Mason Smith ate up the bulk of what they did. And the year prior to that, it was Wingo and Roy that played the first and sixth most snaps of any DTs in the country. So without those guys, yes, I understand that being the question mark. I feel really good, though, about that end and jack positions, or however you kind of that stand-up edge rusher, whatever it might be in Blake Baker's defense. And I think for Relaford, that's hand in the dirt, D end. And if a guy like Savion starts to kick inside, maybe you do get, you move one spot up the depth chart and you start to play a little bit more.
Shea, before we let you go, I want to ask you about someone who signed in this class and is already in the transfer portal, Joe Cryer, out of Manny, Louisiana, and Natchitoches Central, I think his last year. That's not a lot of time on campus before you enter yourself into the portal. What happened there? And, that's just a little bit of a circumstance that we typically don't see. Someone that signs in that class, gets there in the spring, and then is already in the portal before summertime hits.
Yeah, I think what came down to it there was probably a long-term view of a path to the field, because this will be DJ Chester's first year at center. Joe Cryer had been playing center, and I really talked about that being the focal point of kind of getting ready to come to LSU as an early enrollee. And when he flipped from Ole Miss to LSU and they got him on board, he was considered, okay, you'll be the center in the class. But then things really fell apart at A&M. With Jimbo getting fired and all that, I think they flipped 4 or 5 total A&M commits. And one of them was Cohen Eccles, who has come in and now is backup center to DJ Chester as an early enrollee and has played really well and drawn some praise from the staff. So when you're kind of with another guy who's the exact same age as you and he's getting reps ahead of you, I think it made some sense for Cryer to say, okay, then I'll go ahead and take a look around. They released him from his letter of intent so he could go anywhere, and then he landed at USM over the weekend. So won't be going too far, heading over to Hattiesburg, and my guess is they're pretty pumped about that one because, boy, if you put on his film, he's a nasty offensive lineman, and good for him for finding a new landing spot. And we know that Brad Davis has had no shortage of good offensive linemen come through here the past few years. So I think probably works out, well for both parties here in terms of Joe being able to find some more immediate playing time. His roster numbers obviously staying under that 85-man limit.
Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.